The Sturmgewehr 1.5 is the first of the assault rifles available to the assault class in Battlefield 5, and thus, surprisingly admittedly, we've yet to actually review it. That's about to change, because of course in today's video we're going to be looking at the stats of the Sturmgewehr 1.5, the performance that it brings to the table, the upgrades and specializations I would recommend, how it compares to some of the other assault rifles as well as other weapons available in Battlefield 5, and of course lastly, how to get the most out of this weapon when using it on the battlefield. Starting off then with the stats, as we always do, the Sturmgewehr 1.5 has the typical assault rifle damage model, meaning a maximum damage of 25 and a minimum damage of 17, a 4-shot kill up into and including 10 meters. From there on onwards to and including 50 meters you've got a 5-shot body shot kill, and from 50 meters onwards you're looking at a 6-shot kill with your minimum damage of 17 being reached at 75 meters. Thus, in the damage department at least, things are looking pretty rosy, as typical for all assault rifles. The fire rate then, at 670 rounds per minute, is the second highest, as of now, amongst the assault rifles, and overall in Battlefield 5, while not comparable to some of the close quarter SMGs, otherwise very competitive. Equally standard, or even good, is the magazine size of the Sturmgewehr 1.5 at 31 rounds. There's plenty to chew through 2, usually 3 enemies if you're placing your shots decently accurate. And when you do have to reload this gun from time to time, thanks to its short reload of 2.3 seconds, things aren't too troublesome, although the long reload should be avoided at 3.5 seconds. In terms of recoil then, the Sturmgewehr 1.5 has 0.75 vertical, and that's on a per shot basis, with no added for consecutively fired shots. That means you're always dealing with 0.75 degrees of vertical recoil. In terms of horizontal recoil, at 0.275, you've got quite a bit to deal with here, but nothing that with the help of a little bit of specializations and the choosing of the correct engagement distances isn't manageable. The last thing that we'd of course have to mention is the accuracy of this weapon, and that is comparable essentially to every other assault rifle out there, with a standardized minimum spread while aiming down sight of 0.1, aiming down sight while moving simultaneously giving you a minimum spread of 0.3, and if you're hip firing and moving simultaneously, something I wouldn't necessarily recommend in situations other than extreme close quarters, you're going to be looking at a relatively inaccurate 3 degrees of minimum spread. So with these stats out of the way then, what do we have available in terms of specializations? Well, in the first choice, you are either going to have to go for a quick reload upgrade, giving you a 15% faster reload, or quick aim, allowing you to aim down sight 33% faster. Then you either go left, going for an enhanced grip, which gives you better accuracy while hip firing, and following that a polished action, which allows you to maintain decently accurate hip fire for a longer period of time. Or if you go the right hand side, you're going to be looking at a ported barrel, decreasing your horizontal recoil quite significantly, and following that a barrel bedding, improving your accuracy while standing still. The last choice you have then is between a recoil buffer, improving your vertical recoil, or a custom stock, allowing you to move faster while aiming down sight and moving simultaneously. My personal choice is quite clear, and I think it is the better of the available for this weapon, with quick aim followed by the ported barrel upgrade, the barrel bedding upgrade, and then either the recoil buffer for the vertical recoil decrease or the custom stock if AD spam is more your style. As far as I can tell from these stats, the vertical recoil buffer actually doesn't do anything, which of course seems a little bit strange, so I'm assuming that the stats in that department are wrong. But let me know down below in the comments if you noticed a big difference between not having the recoil buffer and having the recoil buffer. That is of course only the vertical recoil upgrade, because the horizontal recoil upgrade, the ported barrel, is clearly quite noticeable, and in my opinion makes the weapon a lot more viable at those medium long ranges where you want to engage with an assault rifle. And if you can place your shots accurately, usually you can do quite successfully. So in terms of comparative performance then, we have to compare this weapon not only to assault rifles, but specifically to the FG42. As I mentioned in my review on that weapon, find it linked down below in the description or up in the card if you're interested. The FG42 is almost a carbon copy in not all but many senses of the Sturmgewehr 1.5. They share a very similar damage output thanks to an identical fire rate. They generally both have relatively similar recoil, both horizontal and vertical, although there are small differences there. The big differences really is that the FG42 has a smaller magazine size, but on the other hand has a bipod to compensate for it. And as such, these weapons, well, perform relatively similar. The STG has a small accuracy bonus of the FG42, not that that's too noticeable, and the FG42 has a slight horizontal recoil bonus over the Sturmgewehr 1.5. All in all, both of these weapons are great. The question is which class really do you want to be running with them, and not if they are a good choice in the first place. More interestingly than the comparison amongst the assault rifles themselves. The Riberol is a significantly more long-range focused assault rifle and thus not really interesting in our comparison today, and the M1907 is an entirely different beast geared exclusively to close medium-range engagements and not as flexible as something like the Sturmgewehr 1.5 or the STG-44. Of course, the weapon that most likely the Sturmgewehr 1.5 is going to be compared to. The key differences between these two are obviously that the Sturmgewehr 1.5 is the slightly more medium close range focused version of the STG-44. There's small differences in recoil here to the benefit of the STG. On the other hand, there's noticeable differences in the fire rates of the weapon, with the STG obviously losing out against the Sturmgewehr thanks to a roughly 70 round lower fire rate. All in all, if you're looking for a more longer range version of the Sturmgewehr 1.5, you're looking at the STG. If you want something slightly more capable and close to medium range, slightly more aggressive, you're looking at the Sturmgewehr 1.5. But having then discussed the stats, the specs, and all the comparative performance elements, what about maximizing this weapon's potential? What about getting the most out of it when using it on the battlefield? Well, in terms of the Sturmgewehr 1.5, we're talking about a slightly more flexible than average weapon, and thus there's no set engagement distance which you really need to keep to. If you want to strictly have an advantage over your enemy, you're going to try and stay away obviously from any kind of extreme long range combat, more going for medium close quarter engagements, but also trying to stay away from the extreme close quarter engagements because there, weapons such as the Tommy gun or the Suomi will be able to take you out relatively easily. Now, their effective hipfire range usually doesn't quite extend to the 30 meters, at which the assault rifles start to have a bullet to kill advantage over the SMGs and become the clearly better choice in most scenarios, but let's say up until 20 meters, weapons such as the Tommy gun and Suomi are actually very dangerous to you. But that actually describes perfectly what makes the Sturmgewehr 1.5 such an attractive option. It allows you, but for the extreme close quarters and the long range, to have a very effective, sometimes even one of the best weapons available to you, with a little bit of recoil control, tap firing or burst firing, depending at the engagement distances, and with the help of a few headshots, which, thanks to the relatively high vertical recoil, is usually easy to get because the gun gravitates upwards enough to the point where usually one of the bullets ends up clipping the helmet of the enemy soldier you're firing at. You're looking at some relatively consistent and relatively range flexible damage output, which is the reason why I've enjoyed the Sturmgewehr 1.5, not only at the beginning of Battlefield 5, but to this day, having unlocked, obviously at this point, all of the assault's weapons, I continuously go back to the Sturmgewehr 1.5 if I want an assault rifle a little bit more aggressively geared, but not as limited as the M1907, and not as medium long-range focused as the STG-44 or Riberol 1918. But that pretty much wraps it up for the Sturmgewehr 1.5, how it's best used, and what it has to offer the assault player in Battlefield 5. Let me know down below in the comments not only what you think of the Sturmgewehr 1.5, what your experiences with the weapon have been, but also what you thought of this video. If it was interesting, helpful, or at all entertaining, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching, and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 5 video.